Good morning. I'm Ruth, if anyone doesn't know me, and we are carrying on our series this morning of A People Who Love from Romans 12. So Andrea started us 2 weeks ago with Love Must Be Sincere, and Andy last week talked about cling to what is good and hate what is evil. And if you missed either of those and you want to catch up, they're on YouTube. Hopefully chat about them a bit in your groups. So we're carrying on this week and we're looking at what it means to be devoted to one another. So let's read the passage from Romans 12 and it'll come up. There we go. Love must be sincere. Hate what is evil and cling to what is good. Be devoted to one another in love. Honour one another above yourselves. Never be lacking in zeal, but keep your spiritual fervour, serving the Lord. Be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, faithful in prayer. Share with the Lord's people who are in need. Practice hospitality. Bless those who persecute you. Bless and do not curse. Rejoice with those who rejoice and mourn with those who mourn. Excuse me, we've got the back to school cold in our house. So be devoted to one another in love. So what does devote mean? Well, I looked it up. And it says that devote means to give all of something, especially your time, your effort, your love, or yourself, to something you believe in or to a person. And it comes from the Latin, and the original meaning, or the words in the Latin that it comes from, mean to formally vow. It's quite a serious word. So I kind of thought, right, okay, fine, there's lots there to get started with and write a talk about. And then I looked up the word in the original Greek that the New Testament was written in. So this letter is written by Paul to the Romans, and he wrote it in Greek. And the word that he used here for that has been translated into devote means something a little bit different. So this word that he uses occurs nowhere else in the New Testament. And it actually means tender affection, that which exists between parents and children. And it means that Christians should have similar feelings toward each other as belonging to the same family and as united in the same principles and interest. It's a special form or manifestation of agape. So Andrea talked a little bit about agape. So agape is unconditional and sacrificial love. So the word used here by Paul is describing an affectionate manifestation of unconditional and sacrificial love, which sounds really easy, right? We can all do that, no problem. Unconditional, sacrificial, affectionate, fine. We read these little two words, be devoted. And Paul is actually saying, love each other tenderly and affectionately and unconditionally and sacrificially, as you belong to the same family, and be united in your principles and interest, which feels like quite a lot, doesn't it? To fit into like those two little words, be devoted, it feels like quite a lot. So this morning I just want us to take it bit by bit and work out, well, what does that actually mean and how do we live that? So Paul says we're family. He says love each other as in one family. So what does it mean to be in family? Well, first of all, I think that being family means that we belong. And Paul himself says that a few verses earlier. In verse 5 of chapter 12, he says, we are many parts of one body, and we all belong to each other. So every single person here belongs. Whether you've been here for 5 minutes or you've been here for 5 years, you belong. There's a place for you. There's a seat at the table. You are part of the fabric of this church. And there's no initiation process. There's no hoops to jump through. You don't have to have been here for so long before you belong, before you are part of things. I grew up in a family of 4, my parents and my brother and I, and that was all. And the 4 has now become 11, and a dog. We don't make a distinction between the original 4 and the newbies. Sometimes I think we should, but we don't. We're still one family, we're still one entity, just the family has changed shape. And it's changed how we do things. So a few years ago, well, quite a lot of years ago, actually, we went around Windsor Castle. My parents live quite near Windsor. So we went around Windsor Castle. And if my family were doing that, we would basically whistle-stop tour through Windsor Castle, go, oh, that's a nice picture, and oh, look at that nice chair. And it would be quite quick. If you take Richie on anything like that, you need to have a whole day to do it. Every single sign is read, every single, thing that you can immerse yourself in, you have to immerse yourself in. And it's changed how we do things. So when we go for a walk now, you get those like information signs when you go for a walk about places which obviously before we would have breezed happily past. Now we stop and my mum just goes, "Okay, Rick, tell us where we are and tell us everything that we need to know." So now we have, a tour guide wherever we go. It's changed how we do things. And the same goes here. This family is not a rigid shape that everyone must fit into. Because with every new person who becomes part of the family changes shape. And we do things differently as we incorporate the gifts that each person brings and the experiences and the passions that everybody brings. And the picture that kind of came to my mind was a hula hoop, like a hula hoop that you hula hoop with. I can't do it, which is why I didn't bring one to demonstrate. I know, it's very disappointing. A hula hoop versus a giant elastic band. Because hula hoops are rigid and they don't change and you have to squeeze yourself. If we all tried to get into a hula hoop, we'd have to all squeeze in. But an elastic band stretches and it changes shape. And you can stretch it out a bit here and then it can come back in. And you can stretch it out somewhere else and it can come back in. Families are where we grow up and where we discover who we are and what we are made for. And it's the same with our church family. It is a safe space. It's a space to take risks. It's a space to try things, to think, I feel like God's really asking me to join this team and serve in this way. I feel like God's asking me to say something in my coast group, but I don't normally speak in coast group. I just like to listen. And that feels really scary, but I feel like God's asking me to try that. And that is the beautiful thing about being in an elastic band, is that we can try these things, we can give it a little stretch, and if it doesn't work out that well, that's okay, because we only find that out by trying, and it's fine, and it's a safe place to try and fail, to take risks. Part of belonging is that family doesn't stop being family when things are difficult. It will surprise you to learn that I come from quite an emotional family. It's a surprise, isn't it? Obviously, I'm the exception to the rule. My brother and I, there's 5 years between us, and we get on really, really well, but we haven't lived together, right? I moved out when I was 18 to do a gap year, and he was 13. We haven't lived together since then. So when we go on holiday and have to share space, we can find that we emotionally challenge each other sometimes. That's the diplomatic way of putting it. But it doesn't mean that we stop being family just because we fall out sometimes. Nothing can change that we are family. So on our best days, we are family, and on our worst days, we are family. And that's true here as well. On your best days, you're part of this family, and you belong. And on your worst days, you're part of this family, and you belong. And the thing is that on somebody else's best days, they're part of this family, and they belong. And on somebody else's worst days, when they really annoy you, and they emotionally challenge you, they are still part of this family, and they still belong. Because belonging doesn't mean behaving. It means coming as you are, and knowing that you have a place. So being family means we belong, and it also means that we gather. So being in a family means having family gatherings, doesn't it? Do we all love family gatherings? Most of my family live in England, so obviously getting to gatherings isn't that easy. But we're having one in December. So my mum's one of 7, so I'm one of 16 grandchildren. And then obviously now there's another generation coming up too. So if we all go, there's going to be over 50 of us. So it's obviously taken the organisers loads of effort to find somewhere that we can all fit for a start. And it's just before Christmas, right? So school hasn't finished and work hasn't finished. Everything's a bit more expensive at Christmas. But that's when we're going, because that's when it just generally works for most people. I'm really looking forward to it, but it isn't the most convenient timing. So it's taken a little bit of organising and a little bit of effort to be there. I actually booked the flights, and then I remembered I've got a job now. I literally was thinking about the kids in school and getting the flights to work around that. And we booked the flights, and I suddenly was like, oh, I haven't even asked my boss. I forgot I actually have a job, so I had to then run it past my boss. But it's all good. It isn't the most convenient timing, and it's costing us something to be there. But being part of a family and spending time as a family is worth those things. Because when I go to this weekend, when we go in December to this weekend, there are lots of partners that I haven't met yet. My cousins, a lot of them are about 10 years younger than me. So they're just hitting the age of meeting people and getting married and having children. There are partners, there are fiancés I haven't met, there are babies I haven't met. And I will meet them in December, and I can only meet them if I go. Family gatherings are where we know and are known, and where we love and are loved. And the more we invest in them, the more valuable they become. That's true of anything, isn't it? The more we invest in something, the more value it has. If I didn't go, I would still be part of the family. Like, nothing can change that, but there wouldn't be much of a relationship. And eventually I would almost just be part of the family in name only. In Hebrews 10, it says this: "Let us hold tightly without wavering to the hope we affirm, for God can be trusted to keep his promise. Let us think of ways to motivate one another to acts of love and good works, and let us not neglect our meeting together, as some people do, but encourage one another, especially now that the day of his return is drawing near." Let us not neglect our meeting together. Let us think of ways to motivate one another to acts of love and good works. Gathering here on a Sunday doesn't require us to get on an aeroplane, but it does still cost us. It takes time and it takes effort. And it's the same with getting to coast groups. It takes time and it takes effort. Especially as the nights draw in and you just really want to get your jammies on and just sit on the sofa. I mean, go in your jammies, that's what I would do. But it does take time and it does take effort. But it is always worth the investment. And in order to encourage each other and in order to motivate each other to love and to good works, we need to be together. So family means we belong and we gather, and family means we share the load. So you wouldn't believe it today, but last week, if you remember, was glorious and hot, and we were in T-shirts and shorts. And a lot of us went to Ballygally, to the beach for a barbecue. And we were only going for a few hours, obviously after school and after work. But if you had seen the boot of our car, you would have thought that we were going for a few weeks. So we got a space. You know, in Ballygally, you have to park. The car park's like up above the other side of the road, and then you have to cross the car park and cross the road and go down the slope and onto the beach. So, of course, we got a space quite near the back of the car park. And so we weren't going to make 2 trips, right? So everybody has to carry something. So you're like piling the children up with like, here's a picnic blanket, or here's a bucket and spade, or here's a wetsuit. And everybody had to carry something. And, of course, it was relative to strength and capacity. But even if it's just Benj carrying a bucket and spade, it makes a difference because that's one bucket and spade that someone else doesn't have to carry. In a family, everyone carries what they can. And if something is dropped between the beach and the car, which, you know, is very likely to happen with our family, you don't stand around and have a discussion. Who was holding that? Why did you drop it? What happened? Somebody just scoops up. Whoever has the space and the capacity for the thing that has been dropped, scoops it up, and you keep going, and you get to the beach. Galatians 6, 1-3 says, "Dear brothers and sisters, if another believer is overcome by some sin, you who are godly should gently and humbly help that person back onto the right path. And be careful not to fall into the same temptation yourself. Share each other's burdens, and in this way obey the law of Christ. If you think you are too important to help someone, you are only fooling yourself. You are not that important." Tough words. Share each other's burdens. We all need help to carry different things at different times, don't we? Sometimes the going in life is very tough, and we find that we can't carry as much as we once could. Imagine climbing a hill and you're laden down with bags, and it is really heavy going, and the higher you get, the more tired you get, and somebody comes up behind you and says, "Oh, here, I'm not carrying that much. Give a couple of your bags to me." And you just feel that weight slip off your shoulders, and your renewed energy is astonishing, isn't it? Like you just have this renewed vigor to keep going, and suddenly the journey isn't arduous anymore. It's enjoyable again. We are family, and we are traveling together. So let's be people who look around and notice how other people are. And I really think it's as simple as saying, you don't seem quite yourself today. Is there anything I can pray with you about? Because I think we notice sometimes when people don't seem themselves, don't we? Sometimes you go home, you think, so-and-so was a bit quiet today, weren't they? Do you think they're okay? Why do we do that? Why don't we say, you seem a bit quiet today. Are you okay? Can I pray with you? Why do we talk about the person instead of speaking to them to see how they are and what we can help with? Or, I know you've had a tough week. Is there anything that I can help you with this week to make it a little bit easier? Sometimes sharing the load might require you doing something. It might require you actually doing something that the other person was going to do so that they don't have to. But I think often it will just mean listening to them and praying. Because knowing that somebody sees you and is praying for you makes a huge difference. I've got 2 texts this morning saying, I'm praying for you this morning when you're speaking. It's so lovely. You just feel like so known and seen and cared for. And it's just a text message, and it's a prayer, but it makes such a big difference. When Hagar ran away from Abraham and Sarah, she encountered God in the desert, and she said to God, you are the God who sees me. And we're made in the image of that God. So let's be people who see each other. Let's be people who, if something gets dropped en route, instead of saying, can you believe that person forgot to do that thing? Say, oh, here, let me get that. I'll carry that for a while. This morning, right, I sent the Ltda material out at the start of the week on email, but it's always my intention to email it, but also to have a hard copy in the Ltda room in case anybody hasn't had a chance to print it or isn't able to print it. And this morning we were leaving the house 10 minutes after we aimed to, and I suddenly thought, I haven't done a hard copy of the Ltda material. And I texted Heather, I was like, do you want a hard copy, or are you happy with your digital one? Like, please be happy with the digital one. And she immediately replied, it's okay, I printed it. I was like, instead of just being like waiting for me to do it, she just got on and did it herself, and it helped me so much. She carried it for me. That's what family does. We belong, we gather, we share the load. And the last one, being family means we get stuck in. My mum is coming to stay this week. So when she arrives, I will offer her and make her a cup of tea. And after that, the kettle is as much her territory as it is mine. Maybe even more, if I'm honest. Guests wait to be served, but family gets stuck in. They see what needs doing and they do it. Peter says, God has given each of you a gift from his great variety of spiritual gifts. Use them well to serve one another. Do you have the gift of speaking? Then speak as though God himself was speaking through you. Do you have the gift of helping others? Do it with all the strength and energy that God supplies. Then everything you do will bring glory to God through Jesus Christ. All glory and power to him forever and ever. Amen. And the Message version of that passage says, be generous with the different things God gave you, passing them around so that all get in on it. We are all in on this. We are all in this together. And there's that well-known expression, isn't there? Make yourself at home. That's an invitation, isn't it? And it's the invitation to everybody here. But nobody can do it for you. I can't make you at home. I can invite you to make yourself at home, and I absolutely do, but I can't make you at home. You can only make yourself at home. You can sit on the edge of the sofa waiting to be served your cup of tea, or you can put the kettle on and do what you see needs to be done. A year or two ago, I heard about a church who, I think it was in America, they invited the homeless people in their city to come and have a meal. But the invitation wasn't just to come and eat the meal. The invitation was also to come and prepare and serve and eat and clear up after the meal with the people who invited them, with their hosts, because they wanted them to know that they weren't guests, they were family. And when people get stuck in and they do the preparing and they do the clearing up, then they know, I'm in here, I'm family. Every person here is invited to make themselves at home and put the kettle on. We belong, we gather, we share the load, we get stuck in. Devote yourselves to each other. Love each other with tender affection as family, and be united in the same principles and interest. So we've looked at what family is, or a bit of what family is. What does it mean to be united in the same principles and interest? I think principles could be described as how you do something. They could be described as how we do what we do. And I think another word for that is values. And I think our interest can be described as why we do what we do. And another word for that is our vision. Principles and interest is really the same as vision, as values and vision. Because as family, we don't exist for ourselves, do we? We're not an insular, inward-looking family. We're an outward-looking family and an outward-loving family. Our vision at Antrim Coast Vineyard, and this is on the website, and you can go and have a look. Our vision as Antrim Coast Vineyard is to see our extraordinary God transform the life of every heart, home and headland along our Antrim coast. To see our extraordinary God transform the life of every heart, home and headland along our Antrim coast. That's why our family is here. That's why we exist, to see that happen. That's what we are united in. If you're part of this family, that is what we are moving towards all of the time. And how do we do that? Well, our values are how we do it. These are taken from the website. And again, there's loads here. We're not going to be able to unpack this morning. So, have a look when you get home and unpack it and see, how do I fit into this? The first one is we dream. We are a family who dreams together. We believe God has a beautiful dream for the Antrim Coast area, and we look to partner with him in bringing that dream alive by demonstrating the extraordinary love of Jesus through our everyday lives. We believe that God dreams great things for each of us as individuals, so we are passionate about encouraging each other to discover what we are made for. Remember the elastic band? Safe to try? Give it a wee stretch. Secondly, we create. We believe God, who created us in his own image, created us to partner with him in rewriting the story of our towns and villages. We want to encourage a culture of courageous creativity, believing that as a church we do not exist for ourselves, but rather for the Antrim Coast community. We love that we can be creative, using what God gives us, doing what we can with what we have, right where we are. Put the kettle on. Thirdly, we grow. We believe that Jesus desires each of us to grow individually in personal relationship with him, and we highly value growing in relationship with each other in community, as creating room for one another is one of our highest priorities. As a community, we believe in the importance of growing together as the family of God, and so we are passionate and excited about growing God's kingdom as Antrim Coast Vineyard. And the last value, we give. We believe God calls us to radical generosity in many ways, including our finances, our time, and our homes. We are called to practically serve one another, both in church and in the communities God has placed us. As a compassionate church, we share resources to care for others and lift them from poverty and injustice. We believe we carry God's presence wherever we go. And as we experience his presence, I've typed it wrong on my iPad. I'm going to read it off the screen. In his presence, we experience his love. And as he changes us, we can't help but share it with others. There's so much there. I love it. I didn't even read the values until I'd written the whole bit about family. And then when I read all the values, I remembered what the values were, but all the blurby bit. When I read all of that, I was like, oh goodness, this ties in so beautifully without even realizing. And we can't go into it all this morning, but those are on the website, so please go and have a look. I just wanted us to see this morning what are the principles and the interests that we are united in, and how can we be even more united going forward. So, Be devoted, those two little words. Be family, belonging and gathering and sharing the load and getting stuck in. Dream, create, grow and give. Love each other tenderly, affectionately, unconditionally and sacrificially. It's a lot to fit into 2 words, and it's a lot to take on board. It's a lot to try and live. It is too much to try and live in our own strength. We can't do that. But the same God who is transforming the life of every heart and home and headland is the same God who loves us like that, who loves us tenderly and loves us affectionately and loves us unconditionally and loves us sacrificially. And he gives us the strength to love like that as well. So we're going to come to worship again, but why don't we just stand? And I'm going to pray. And just receive that love that God has for you again this morning, the tender and affectionate love, the unconditional love that loves you on your bad days, the sacrificial love that came and died for you so that you could be friends with God. That's how he loves you. And that's how he asks us to love each other. And we cannot do that in our own strength. We can only love like Jesus because Jesus gives us the love and the strength to do that. Thank you, Jesus, for drawing all of us together into a family. And thank you that we are a family who belongs to you. We are in your hand and no one can take us out. And we will live with you forever. Thank you for the plan for all of our lives that brought us here together. God, help us to be a family who love tenderly and affectionately and unconditionally and sacrificially. Help us to be a family who love our communities like that as well. Jesus, I just pray for every person here that right now they would encounter your love for them in a way that they never have before. God, thank you that you see each person and you know each heart here and you know exactly the needs that everybody has, God. Thank you that you alone can meet those needs. And thank you that you love to meet those needs. You delight to meet those needs. Come, Holy Spirit, and touch every heart and rest on every person. Just pray for showers of refreshing rain to fall on everyone here. Thank you that it is unconditional. Whether we are having the worst day of our lives or the best day, your love is the same. And you call us worthy to receive it. We receive it this morning, Jesus. Come, Holy Spirit.
Let the King of my heart be Be the mountain where I run, the fountain I drink from. Oh, he is my song. Let the King of my heart be the shadow where I hide, the ransom for my life. Oh, he is my song. You are good, good. Oh, you are good, good. Oh, you are good. Let the King of my heart be the wind inside my sails, the anchor in the waves. Oh, he is my song. Let the King of my heart be the fire inside my veins, the echo of my days. Oh, he is my song. You are good, good. Never gonna let me down. You're 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 never gonna let me my sails, the anchor in the waves. Oh, he is my song. Let the King of my heart be the fire inside my veins, the echo of my days. Oh, he is my song.
Jesus, we make you the King of our hearts again this morning. Yeah. And I pray that you would help us, God, that you would give us the strength to make you as much the King on Monday morning as you are now, and on Tuesday night, and on Friday night, and on Saturday morning, God, that you would always be the King of our hearts. Thank you that we don't do it in our own strength, we do it in yours. And thank you that we do it with you, and thank you that we do it with each other. May we be so aware of your presence with us this week. Amen. Thank you so much for being here. Enjoy some coffee. Go and get your children, and please keep them in the room with you once you've got them. And if you would like prayer for anything, please grab somebody, because it is always our joy to pray with you. So cheers, guys, and have a great week.